Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is brought to you by Peach State Payments, ethical processing, more profit, less stress. Chiro HD, more than an EHR, practice management simplified. The Chiro Speaking Company, attract, educate, and convert. Chiro Spring, cloud-based, user-friendly software with all the essential features chiropractors need. OmniWave, redefining comfort and acoustic wave technology. Chiro Health USA, Chiro Script AI, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, 5-Star Forge, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, and the IFCO. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 723 of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we have the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Kyle Hulsebus. If you want to hear his story and how he comes from a large chiropractic family, stay tuned for the full episode.
Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle Podcast. It's episode 723 today. I have Kyle Hulsebus on with me today, and really excited to chat with him about all things chiropractic. Third generation chiropractor, so we're going to discuss Chiro family. He loves to do talks to his community, so connecting with the community. And then we did meet at John DeMartini's breakthrough experience, and I don't know. I think he might have been the only other chiropractor besides DeMartini in the audience or in the group there.
I think so.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. John says, "Hey, you need to meet Kyle." And I went and met Kyle. And I said, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast?" And here we are. So really cool. Thanks for taking action.
Absolutely.
So I'll let everybody know our big why, then we'll jump into your story. Our big why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle? Well, first things first is freedom of speech. As all of you know, you've seen that come under fire over the past 5 years. And we've been shadow banned and traffic throttled and censored, and we never do that to you. We also believe in medical freedom and family health freedom. They're not the same things, but if you need guidance on any of that and you're watching this, reach out to a chiropractor in your neighborhood or city. We also protect BJ Palmer's Sacred Trust. It's his last written words. If you want to know more about it, go to the show notes and click on the Sacred Trust. And even if you've been a chiropractor for 30 years, you're going to fall back in love with this amazing profession. And then philosophically speaking, we do support subluxation-based chiropractic, and we do believe in innate intelligence and universal intelligence and educated intelligence. We believe that when man or woman, the physical gets adjusted, it connects them to man or woman, the spiritual. I know that's a bunch of woo-woo, but that's what chiropractic is. And I think that we just lay down the opener like that. And Kyle, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, no, it's great. I'm glad to hear and share some of my experience and wisdom with everybody and, get to know your audience.
Yeah. So third generation chiropractor, man. Tell me that story.
Well, here's the interesting thing. I had this in school quite a bit. I went to Life West. And actually I had this fun experience where I started Life West under Dr. Jerry Klum, and I finished Life West under Dr. Brian Kelly. And so he had a lovely transition of people running that. But people ask me all the time in school, they're like, well, you were born to this. Your dad probably just showed you all this stuff when you were a kid. I'm like, I'm 27 years old going to chiropractic school. And I remember distinctly being 18 when people say you're going to be a chiropractor. I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm not going to follow in my dad's footsteps. I want to be my own person. I'm not going to be a shadow of my dad. So I went and got a degree in theater, a degree in literature. I have a degree, like a minor in Buddhist philosophy. And I was a freelance writer and a bartender, and I ran a shoe company and just, did all sorts of stuff. I traveled around the world, anything I could do to get out of it. And, but the thing that kind of kept coming back, I got into copywriting. I lived in downtown Chicago, and I'd been bartending at a restaurant, and I was doing some copywriting. And one of the things that came across in order for you, where they're like, here's some stuff you can start to do and do this research. I kept researching because they said the best paying copywriting you could do, and copywriting, if people don't understand, is like your junk mail. And they said that, you gotta, it's health products. That's what we want to sell in the mail. That's the number one stuff. And you come from a health background, so you'll probably be good at it. And I kept researching it, and they're talking about these superfoods and everything. And it was big on garlic. And I kept reading it. And I kept studying it. And the more I studied it, the less it made sense. I finally called my dad. I said, I just cannot make sense of this stuff. And he goes, it's because it's contradictory to everything I taught you about philosophy and health and chiropractic your entire life. And you cannot reconcile it with health, that they're trying to give people something from the outside to make them healthy when it's something in the inside. And they said, so just just stop what you're doing and go to the school so you can be the doctor and the authority. And I said, okay. And I was already sending friends of mine from downtown Chicago to drive 2 hours to see my dad, because they trusted me, even though I had no idea really what I was talking about. I said, well, the chiropractor is going to help that. And he gave me the Stevenson textbook when I was 15, and I read through it. So, the interesting part, I guess, about coming from sort of this third generation legacy, that my father he got the Legion of Chiropractic Philosophers under Fred Barge. My dad's very much a philosopher. He's ran great business. My uncles, grandfather, everybody's so involved into it that maybe I grew up with this perspective and perception of health that taking stuff from the outside never made sense. I remember a friend of mine, and I had a slight headache when I was at his house. I think we were 12, and his dad said, well, just take an aspirin. I said, what's an aspirin? And he was a little shocked that I didn't really know what it was or what you took it for. So, because I just never really been exposed to anything like that. And, that's probably the interesting part about being third generation. Then when I come in, I have this perspective of somebody that learned under Galen Price. If you don't know Galen Price, he's very well known in obviously chiropractic history. And he just kind of had, this is how you talk to people. This is how you go through it. Go through school and get your degree so that we can teach you how to be a doctor. That's third generation.
And as I heard you talking about this, you got that Stevenson's at 15. How did that download into you to like start framing out like your ideas around not being a chiropractor?
Well, I'm real interested. If you ask members of my family, they'll probably tell you I'm a little odd, because I like I said, I accidentally got a minor in Buddhist philosophy. Like I was very interested in studying the principles in that, and did that at University of Iowa. And, here I was in school, and I was learning about Plato, and I'm learning about Aristotle and everything. And my dad even brought a quote up one time, and he goes, I don't even remember what it was. I go, oh yeah, that's Aristotle. He goes, no, it's not. It's BJ Palmer. I go, Dad, it's Aristotle that said that. It's not BJ Palmer. He goes, BJ Palmer said it. I go, well, then BJ knows Aristotle. And I started, and I was already, I was very interested. I study ancient languages for fun these days. And the, just understanding and seeing all those pieces go through, what I realized when I look back at it is I don't think I would have been a very effective chiropractor if I'd gone right to school at the age of 20. I would have, I have a little web series I have today called the 40 over 40. And a lot of stuff I see in there is, we're almost not ready until we're 40. We've got all this input and stuff going in. Somewhere I still needed to cook. I still needed to learn a little life experience. I still needed to see the world. I was a world traveler. My grandparents were world travelers. I've studied multiple religions and philosophies, and I put that together, and I've studied many different physical arts. And so when I walked into chiropractic college, I walked in and I had that knowledge of Stevenson, but I knew how to apply it. And I knew how to apply it in a way that I don't think my dad would have necessarily taught me. I don't know if Galen Price would have taught me that way. But I had this very odd perspective on everything. I had trouble explaining it to my classmates because I didn't study.
Well, it seems like the whole philosophy thing's very esoteric, and you practice chiropractic biophysics. Right. How do those two worlds come together?
Oh, that's very easy, because remember, this is something that I think kind of gets lost in there, and people forget something, that chiropractic is a philosophy, a science, and an art. It's threefold. It is not a philosophy. Philosophy is the foundation. A philosophy sort of shapes where you're going to go. The science is how it works and the ways to apply it. And then the art, the actual art of it is applying the philosophy and the scientific principles. when you get into biophysics, what I've learned from chatting with Deed Harrison and listening to his dad talk, and even Dan Murphy, who helped Don Harrison in that when they were young and they were early and going into it. And the more you really study it, and when you meet some of these other guys that are professors there, they're very philosophical based, because they may not use the words innate, and I know some of the guys will rag on it if you bring up certain philosophical concepts, just knowing some of them, but that denotes just certain people not understanding the philosophy, even though they're using it. They just don't care for the esoteric side, which is great. When they ask us in there, they go, "Why are you doing this?" I go, "Because the way the innate intelligence actually designed the body, if we look at it mathematically and look at it with universal intelligence and how it built it to be able to withstand and be able to adapt to universal forces, there are some ideals mathematically in there where we look at curves and ellipses in the spine. And so even though some things may be permanently changed, and maybe innate intelligence had to change that in order to keep you alive, it still behooves you to work on the overall structure of that in order to assist innate to effectively adapt to universal forces over the course of time." And that I see is what's really going on, because the main adjustment in removing the interference and working on this on the segmental subluxation, we're also working on a global and a chronic subluxation complex, trying to stabilize that. Now, innate can't undo the degenerative process that's gone in there, but if you work on that and you work on that structurally, you will find that innate then continues to adapt everything against universal forces very effectively. And I got 30 years worth of x-rays to show that.
So this was something I found fascinating when I was working into the clinics for 6 years doing traction within a chiropractic biophysics clinic, was when I first understood what Wolff's Law was. That changed the whole dynamic for me about limitations of matter.
No doubt.
Let's riff on that for a minute.
Working on that piezoelectric effect and putting it on there and laying somebody down and allowing that bone and changing the stresses on that bone and that ligament so that the intelligence in your body can say, we can repair that and make it more flexible and change it so that structurally, against gravity and against universal forces and air pressure and all this other stuff and barometric pressure, that we're going to be able to adapt to that. Suddenly, when you look in there and you see that we've got osteoblasts and osteoclasts and are working just in the bone, but we got to look at the same thing on ligament. We got to look at the same thing on tendon. We got to look at the same thing on organelles within the cell structure. All of this is going on all at the same time. You can take Wolff's Law, just the piezoelectric effect in bone, and you can start to apply that all throughout every little piece of the body, so that it's going to work. The brain itself, where that workshop is going to start sending signals back and forth, going, great, now we can repair this over here. Now we can repair this over here. Now we have structural stability here so that we can work on shoring that up over here. We can stop taking away over here. It's an amazing thing.
When I was working with patients, I would ask them, what's easier to breathe, if you put your head all the way out and take a deep breath, or if you put your head all the way back and take a deep breath with your head with good posture, which one's easier? And it was always like a phenomenal conversation, because I would see people like instantly shift. And then I would say, well, that's why we need to get your head back over your ears.
Exactly.
Because what chiropractic does is it has an impact on your vital organs and your vital lung capacity. And that's a part where nobody's really talking about. Even 16 years ago, when I started working in a clinic, now it's still more important than ever with the postures that people carry out from a day to day.
No doubt. And and you look at it that way, that's just mechanics. That's not even nerve. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the spinal cord at that point. That's just, can you breathe and get oxygen properly? Now we start talking about how your lack of oxygen is lack of blood flow is cutting off CSF fluid in the spinal cord. And if you look at the dentate ligaments within the spinal column that are holding the spinal cord and how they're choking and twisting all that and causing, you can just go on and on all day.
Well, that's where postural distortions happen. Exactly. And that's why scoliotic shifts start kicking in, because the body won't allow the head to fall off.
Well, the body's not going to allow the upper spinal cord and the brainstem and the medulla oblongata complex all right up in here in the upper cervical to be so choked off that you're going to die. People say, when we go in there in a philosophical subluxation based chiropractor says, well, innate put it that way. I go, yeah, innate put it that way because it couldn't correct itselfly, and it didn't want the body that it's responsible for to die, so it did put it that way. But CBP and biophysics has proven that if you work on the structure and the body has the capability to change, it's going to change back and it's going to go toward that ideal. And the scientific studies prove it.
I love talking to you about this so much. But let's drop a nugget for the students, because I know you like to work with students too, with the ICA group at specifically Palmer College.
Yeah.
What message would you tell to them? Because I know one of the things that you enjoy doing for your marketing process is community outreach and talks. Maybe talk to them and let them know a little bit about why that's important to get out into the community and set up talks.
There's two things. I'm going to go into language for a minute, because when I speak on origins of words. We're chiropractors, so we're interested in causes. And when I start talks, the first thing I give is the definition of health, because health is an Anglo-Saxon word. It's Old English, and it was health, and it literally means in today's English, state of or a condition of wholeness. And so anybody really concerned with health is holistic. They have to be, otherwise they're not concerned with health. And now my dad would say we're doctors because we're whole and we are educated to the point where we can see if somebody actually needs care other than just ours, because certainly people do, and that makes us doctors. But here's the reason I think that really makes us doctors, because people know what a PhD is, right? It's like a doctorate of philosophy. And you kind of wonder, you call a PhD doctor, but people think real doctors are medical doctors. So we're doctors, but they're, if we went to Latin, we'd call them medicus. And so what doctor means is, doctor comes from the Latin word docere, and docere actually means to teach. And so a doctor is a learned individual who is capable of relating what they've learned to others, if we want to define it that way, which is the way I prefer to use it. And I'm sure I'll get arguments with that. But that means that there's a responsibility there to educate people and to relay your knowledge. We don't have to teach them about dentate ligaments and innate and everything else. But we have a responsibility for people to have an understanding of how holistic health works internally within the body and how we are adapting to that. We have a responsibility to translate our knowledge, our philosophy to layman's terms so that they understand how to have control and be empowered in their own health. That's why we speak.
Okay? How many times?
But if you're speaking, before I interrupt, if you can be speaking to one patient, you can be speaking to 100,000. It's the same thing.
Well, I think this is pertinent. How many times do you have that talk with an individual, one-to-one or one-to-many, and they're exhaling? Why didn't anybody ever tell me this before?
Every day. It's every day. I'm not in my practice this week. Every day.
That's why I do Chiro Hustle. Yeah. Because there's people out there that watch this that don't know that they need somebody to explain to them what we're talking about today. They don't know where to get information. There's so much information out there that if they just go and look for Chiropractic Podcast, they'll find what we're doing here. But not many people are very curious about it because they don't understand that this is exactly what they might be looking for.
Well, and then and they don't. And so I would tell you, even as a chiropractic student, first term, I know that trimesters, quarters, however it runs, your first term, you now have more knowledge than a layperson about health. Yeah, it might be for Part 1 boards. It might be to be able to feel the spinous process on there, and you know how that there's 7 cervicals, 12 thoracic, and 5 lumbar, and five sacral. And great, you now have more knowledge than a layperson. You can go and relate that and share that and educate people on this is how your body works. I mean, my first term at Life West, we learned peripheral neuroanatomy, spinal anatomy, palpation, philosophy. And you just go out and histology, and you just go out and go, wow, it's interesting. Here's how your body works. And so yeah, speaking is one of the great traits you'll have. And you're a leader in your community. You're a doctor. I don't care if you work at the Joint. I don't care if you're an associate in some practice. People are going to look at you as a doctor and a leader, and they want your opinion. It doesn't matter how you practice.
You made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is brought to you by Peach State Payments, ethical processing, more profit, less stress. Chiro HD, more than an EHR, practice management simplified. The Chiro Speaking Company, attract, educate, and convert. Chiro Spring, cloud-based, user-friendly software with all the essential features chiropractors need. OmniWave, redefining comfort and acoustic wave technology. Chiro Health USA, ChiroScript AI, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, 5-Star Forge, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, Life Chiropractic College West, and the IFCO. Let's hustle.
I love that message so much because I think that the world starts to paint chiropractors into a corner that they can only do certain types of ideology. And if you do it any different, the colleagues look at you differently too. So I think it is important for everybody to own their own voice and to support and to, learn how to become somebody that can speak to your community and have confidence in why you do what you do. Because at the end of the day, people do look up to doctors, for better or for worse. It's just the deal. Like I think I was looking at statistics, and I think I pulled up something that said like 1% of the world population are doctors, and the other 99% of the world depends on that 1% to heal their ills.
And to educate, because most people are capable of healing themselves.
Yeah.
All we do is
but to have the hierarchy of intelligence and the ability to actually take somebody from being lame to the point where they actually have something that they trust now, whether it's the placebo effect or not.
Exactly.
They have somebody that they believe in that's going to give them the what they're looking for.
And so, you're going through the school. You have more of a responsibility to remember something. Here's an interesting way to relate it. We adjust, and actually, if I was going to tell a student to work on one thing for the entire time in their school, please work on your actual adjusting skills, whether you're doing activator or physical or whatever, because that's one thing that use those 3 years wisely on that. Because if you can't do that, you're going to have a harder time when you get out, because philosophy alone doesn't adjust people. But so we, as doctors of chiropractic, learned individuals of chiropractic art and philosophy and science, we adjust subluxations, vertebral subluxations, in order to remove interference, to allow the innate intelligence to express total health, lux, light, without interference to its highest level, to adapt to universal forces that are put on us. Now, you also have a responsibility to adjust people mentally to understand their own health, because they have the majority of people come in and they go, but the TV said in the United States, this was on there. What do you think? This was on Facebook. What do you think? This was on social media. What do you think? This came up as an ad. What do you think? And you may be in a position where, you don't comment on medications and everything else, but you can still educate them on how their body works. And that's an adjustment. That's chiropractic too.
Quickest way to get somebody healthy is to tell them to throw their TV out.
I have 3 different things on my my 40 over 40 series, and one is turn off your phone, one is turn off your TV, and one is stay away from the news.
Hey, it just makes
For
sense.
your long-term health, those are 3 of the greatest things you can do.
It's in alignment with me too. You mentioned earlier when you were having conversations with your dad about chiropractic philosophy, and you said that there was like a name. Was it Aristotle? You said,
Aristotle, Plato.
yeah. And I think when you think about it, I'm curious who are some of your mentors besides your dad and besides Galen Price? Like, who are some of the, and maybe they're your family, I don't know, but who are some of the people that helped instill it into you once you decided I'm going to charge forward now and be a chiropractor?
Well, I mean, there was certainly, my dad was my biggest one, but I chatted with my uncles my whole life. My cousin, Dr. Brandt, he was my chiropractor when I went to the University of Iowa, so I got to see sort of a student in action. When I moved out to school, I had this amazing array of working chiropractors that taught at Life West, which was cool. I don't know how it is at other schools, but there were a lot of the doctors that taught had an active practice. And I had Dr. Jerry Clum as a mentor. I had Dr. Brian Kelly, who came from New Zealand Chiropractic College to take over Life West, as a mentor. And I've stayed in touch with him. He's an amazing individual. I had classmates that were mentors, and we got to go back and forth, as it were. My older brother, I lived with him, and he taught me just an insane amount of stuff because he was so excited to share everything all the time. He still is. And then my wife, she graduated with my older brother, and so I had her going all through school, and she's got a completely different viewpoint on everything. She comes from India and Sikh faith and a whole different way of looking at the world. So a chiropractic philosophy just kind of jived with her, and so I had all these mentors in that, but then I had all these people I was reading. I just and people will think, well, then I must have been reading Plato and I must have been reading Aristotle. It's funny. I read a fantasy author by the name of R.A. Salvatore. And I got a lot of just viewpoint of the world reading that. And he writes in one of the Dungeons and Dragons worlds, and he's got this famous character, and I've been reading him since 1992. But the uniqueness about that character is he's a warrior and he's a monk. But every one of his books, he's got at the beginning of every part of each book, it's that character doing a personal, internal philosophical reflection on where he is in life. And maybe I internally do that and have gotten mentors from fictional characters too, which makes it a lot of fun.
Well, I always believe that one of my mentors, I think I spoke about him sometime my last talk in Cuba. But his name's Roberto Monaco. He's my speaking coach.
Yeah, Roberto's a great guy. I've met him several times through Dr. Fred DiDomenico.
And he would always say that if we don't tell our story, someone else will make up one about us.
That's right.
And earlier, when you were talking about these reference points of philosophy with chiropractic, people borrow chiropractic without footnoting it all the time. And I think that it's really important that we protect the sacred trust. And we talk about subluxation, and we talk about innate intelligence and universal intelligence. Coming from this and telling me like the whole storyline of family of how you got to where you are now, where do you see the profession going in the next 2 decades?
Well, there's interesting where you've got in the next 20 years, because we're getting a little more mainstream, and you're going to dilute it a little bit because of that. So you are going to have a portion that stays a little more over here in the subluxation based realm and a little more philosophical, as you do now. And you're going to have a portion that gets away with that as being a little bit of hoodoo and voodoo, as we kind of do now. And you're going to see that travel down those roads, but you're going to see an intermix of it too, because people at this point, the greater population you can see out there, however long it holds up, in the next 20 years, you're going to watch people go, I want more empowerment in my own health. And I want a little less dependency all the time on all these other people. And that's a beautiful place for chiropractic to be, as long as it doesn't allow itself to dilute too much. And as long as we're keeping a lot of these practices alive where people are out there, the joint's been a beautiful thing for the profession, but having a lot of the private practices and even some of these legacy practices has been beautiful too, in order to help people have a great understanding of what's going on. So in 20 years, I think you're going to see a lot more people that's just kind of, I can't believe you don't have a chiropractor. But the people that are regularly doing chiropractic, honestly, I don't think the percentage is going to shift too much, because there's still an empowerment factor in there. And you see kind of a rotating 5 to 10% of people in and out as they go to utilize it. But yeah, the athletes are definitely going to keep utilizing it.
Well, I see a couple different aspects, and I'll share those with you too. I see doctoring in general will go more in the course of chiropractors being hands-on long-term, because it's built on hands-on approach and examining the entire spine and nervous system, organ system, all structural based. But I do see that the doctoring arena may be taken over more by big data. And already people don't have satisfaction when they go see a regular doctor, which most people have more respect for, but they're actually not getting healthier. As you said, the core word for health earlier. If people are really interested in health, they're going to want to go a hands-on approach with somebody that's not going to be giving them, as some people say, pills, potions, or lotions. Right. And I think people are going to be more interested in the dynamics of their frame and their body. And they're going to want to have somebody that can give them guidance and actually lay hands on them and adjust their physiology and adjust their, whatever that bigness of the fellow within is the, their philosophy will shift. And I think people just don't know what they're looking for. It's called chiropractic. Right. But I do think in 20 years, we're going to have a bigger game on our hands when it comes to chiropractic, pun intended. There's going to be a bigger game on our hands for people that are actually going to be facilitating patient care. Right. And people are going to have a higher demand for it. But I've heard many people from the stage saying, hey, if we even went to like a 50% market share, there's not enough chiropractors to serve them. So we just have to keep on promoting this beautiful profession and supporting the graduates that are actually taking it upon themselves to become Jedis of the healthcare space, because they are very amazing people that take it upon themselves to say, I'm going to go become a doctor of chiropractic.
It's huge. And most of the people that do that, it comes right out of their heart, because I had a guy that at Life West named Frank. And I think Frank was in his late 50s, and he came in and he just said, I really want to put my hands on people and help them. And I mean, the man had a multi-million-dollar business and very successful in life. And he did. I mean, he was fantastic. I mean, it was one of those things where you go, that's awesome. That's amazing.
There's no supplement for chiropractic.
There's not a supplement for chiropractic at all. I mean, it's there's no therapy, there's nothing. It's a solid adjustment to remove interference and allow that body to be healthy is one of those main things. But
so at this segment, I like to have people share a miracle story. Walk me through something that you've seen over your career that has really touched your heart, but made you find lasting purpose in everything that you do.
I had a very odd, unique case come to me when I was probably in my second year, and I've had women that weren't supposed to be pregnant, and we take care of those kids, and one's all sorts of these little things. Probably one of the most unique ones I had was a lady that brought in her son, Her son was born with his entire digestive tract outside his body, as I'm given to understand it, which is a little traumatizing. So they had to put him in emergency surgery the day of his birth to save his life. And one of the common side effects of surgery is stroke. So he had a stroke at birth and damaged one part of his brain. So he grew up not having really full use of one side of his body. And when she met my wife and then came into us and brought her son in, he didn't have grand mal seizures, but he had petit mal seizures, and they called them freezes. He just have to stop for a little bit, and it freaked him out. And he was 15 years old, and he could kind of get by on his own, but didn't do real well. Now, you look at something like that and you go, realistically, there are limitations of matter. But there is an expression of intelligence that is lacking here. And the medical people that have worked on him did an amazing job with it. I mean, don't get me wrong. They had a vagus nerve implant that kept his vagus nerve functioning when it should have been dead. He probably shouldn't have lived that long. So the medical people did just an amazing job with this kid. And so it's kind of like up to me to where can we take him? And we x-rayed him and looked at him, and he was one of these rigid people, and got him on our table. We used up, down, high lows. So it was easy for him to get on and off, and we adjusted him. And fortunately, he got a kick out of getting adjusted. So it wasn't really a battle. And it wasn't something you could, aside from measuring my Deerfield and measuring just sort of the day-to-day checks on him, there weren't a lot of exams I could do. It was more, how's he functioning in life? How is his number of petit mal seizures throughout the day going? There wasn't a range of motion test because we weren't really going to get a lot of that. But he'd come in and start to give me a hug, and this kid could slap you on the back into tomorrow, because there was a lot of strength in that one arm. And I did notice he walked in a little bit easier, but I think he first came in September, and they came just after Thanksgiving. I remember seeing him with his mom, and there's another guy with it. I said, "Who's this?" This is, and the mom said, "This is my brother, and he's in from Ohio." I said, "Do you have any questions?" He goes, "I just want to see what you're doing." And I said, "Okay." So I put him on the table. I got him adjusted. At this point, he was 16. And I got him adjusted, and I got up, and the uncle goes, "What else are you going to do?" And I go, "Nothing. That's it. I'm just, I adjusted the whole spine, and certainly he had a very severe upper cervical issue. So we made sure to address the upper cervical each time. But, we were working on all the structure and everything we could do with it. And he just said, "Well, what else are you going to do?" And I said, "No, there's nothing else we're going to do. That's all we do." And he goes, I just, maybe I need some explanation. So I told him about what chiropractic is. We adjust, we do this thing. And I said, why do you ask? And he says, I've known this boy for 16 years, and I've been coming out to Thanksgiving and all that. And he's never sat and talked and communicated and been present with his family until yesterday. And he hasn't really been like a person. And yesterday my nephew just joking with us and playing and really involved, and had this life in him that I've never seen before. And they said the only thing he'd been doing different was going to this chiropractor. So I wanted to see what you're doing. And I went, wow, because it's not an impact you could measure, but a story like that came in. So, that being a first year graduate was kind of like, wow, I mean, he's never going to be normal. Change that kid's life.
He has as they said, a new normal.
Yeah. He just, but suddenly he functioned. I remember the day he came in, and, his mom goes, "Yeah, he's got 3 girlfriends." I go, "All right." So, and it's been years, they moved, but that's something that had a lasting impact on me for the last 13 years.
Well, I it's a very sincere story, and I hear these things quite a bit doing the interviews that I do. And I thank you so much for being our guest today and sharing so openly. And I hope you had a good experience on the Chiro Hustle podcast today.
Yeah, man, it's a lot of fun to talk and share and see what's going on and be just somebody I can give back to the profession a little bit. So.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to share with our audience today?
Well, the only thing I'd say, because you brought up just before I told that miracle story, I'm a member of the ICA, and they started, whether you are or not, but they started a whole mentorship type program with students at the schools. It's probably through the student ICA, but I think whether it's through that or whether you have an opportunity to sort of mentor students, it's an amazing thing to just have somebody they can reach out to. And I think just ask questions of like, do you have a way of looking at this to maybe it's more understandable, or maybe you have an idea of, I've got this weird case and my clinic doc said this, but I'm wondering, do you have a different insight into it? And just something to help people shape and sort of get out of the school box and really start to think and doctor and take care of that. The mentorship is a massive thing, I think, going forward for the profession in the future too, to keep it in there. So if you have that opportunity and, go for it.
ICA, check it out, guys. If people want to reach out to you, where do we send them to?
The easiest way to find me is you can go to hulsebuschiropractic.com, but you can see I've got my speaker's website is drkylehulsebus.com as well, and you can find me through both.
Kyle Hulsebus, thanks for being on with me today. You're episode 723. I'm going to close out now.
All right, James.
You guys are just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Bye for now. See you, Doc.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.